Zavor had always known life aboard Orion's bow was dangerous. Even in its best moments, the quiet between missions, the laughs over bland hydroponic rations, there was always the sense that the next breath could be your last. Too many threats lurked out there. Cults, monsters, madmen with delusions of galactic domination. And the humans, for all their strength, didn't run from any of them. He wasn't weak. He'd faced his share of horrors. But the weight never lifted. It pressed deeper into his bones with each battle, each corpse zipped into the void. He wanted to go home, wanted peace. He should have known better. The humans had a saying, a wish on a monkey's paw. It meant you got what you wanted, but not how you wanted it. A curse disguised as mercy. Zavor's wish came true in the worst possible way. He left Orion's bow broken. He remembered the crash, remembered the beast that had torn through his team, the weight of it slamming into him like a freighter. Then, nothing. Then pain. A blur of screaming and flashing med lights, bones like shattered glass inside him, organs swelling under the wrong kind of pressure, his own blood soaking through the reinforced cloth of his flight suit. He'd been deemed fit for duty only in the loosest sense, which meant fit enough to ship back to the EEG conglomerate, fit enough to rest, heal, but not stay. The farewell had been awkward. No one liked watching someone leave on a stretcher. His friends had tried to soften the moment, Lieutenant Kellen resting a gentle hand on his arm, Carver giving him a rare nod of respect, even the stern Commander McBride offering a blunt, "Don't die." He hadn't expected the hardest part to be the silence once he was gone. Back on Tarvin, he should have had time. But the military had other ideas. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was now a symbol, a rare red scale who'd survived where others hadn't. That made him a teaching opportunity. So the monkey's paw tightened. Tarvin Military Academy was the pride of the EEG's military structure. Generations of elite soldiers had trained here. It was divided into regional arms across the homeworld's continents, but centralized in structure. Zavor had never been invited to study there. He'd clawed his way into the military the hard way, through front-line deployment and ugly missions that left lasting scars. Now, post-injury, they wanted him to teach there. A full-circle insult. He was still recovering when they shipped him to the academy. His bones had been reset, his organs stabilized, and his scales regrown in patchy ridges. He couldn't walk far, so he moved via a tracked mobility chair, its servos humming softly under his weight. Painkillers dulled the sharpest edges, but he still felt every bump in the floor. The lecture hall was familiar in design, modeled after human architecture, with a wide tiered arrangement and acoustics built to carry across species. Dozens of young cadets filled the seats, each with a trio of bright eyes and eager expressions. Their uniforms were pristine, their scales unmarred. Zavor rolled in and felt the eyes settle on him. A low murmur swept through the room. Not fear, respect, awe. He was a veteran, a red scale, and very few of either returned home. Their professor was Yaren, beige-scaled, bright-eyed, and young even for academic standards. Attractive, he noted, with a proud, wide frame that telegraphed her fertility. She was the kind of female who could have had her pick of mates and still chose the life of academia. Zavor she said with a soft gurgle to her voice. "You've been assigned to a role in the human space exploration fleet. Could you tell us what that's like?" Zavor tipped his head slightly to the side, a self-effacing gesture among their people. He couldn't smile. Eeg mouths didn't work that way unless they were about to bite. "In a word," he said, "terrifying." He let the weight of it hang. Then, or maybe, horrifying. There's a difference, apparently. One of the humans explained it to me. Terror is the fear of what's coming. Horror is living through it. The cadets were quiet now, no longer wide-eyed in awe, but focused. "To start from the beginning," he said, "I served aboard a human light cruiser, Orion's Bow. Named after some mythical hunter's weapon, it's what they call a Hab-Ship. Self-sustaining, food, water, oxygen, all handled internally. If we lost supply chains, we could survive for years, maybe longer." He leaned back slightly, eyes scanning the young faces. "It's commanded by Captain Trent Riley. Human. Male. You've all seen pictures, yes?" A murmur of affirmation. "Riley moves like a predator," Zavor said. "The first time I saw him coming down the corridor, I thought something had gone terribly wrong. He stalks, doesn't walk, no wasted motion, always intense." Yaren's left eye flicked slightly. "That sounds intimidating." "It is," Zavor admitted. "Humans are intimidating. They burn hot and bright and fast. They live like they're always ready to die. But they're also surprisingly kind. Director, almost embarrassingly earnest." He paused, realizing how far he'd already gone. He hadn't meant to say this much, but there was something about the room, about the blank slates waiting to be written on. He continued, his voice lower now. "They value life, not because it's fragile, but because they know how easily it's taken. I didn't expect that, and I definitely didn't expect to miss it so much." For a second, the lecture hall was silent. He looked at them again, cadets too young to understand what it meant to want peace, to beg for it. "Do you know what it's like to get exactly what you asked for?" he said quietly. "Only to wish you never asked at all?" They didn't answer. They didn't need to. The pain in his joints flared again, and he clenched his claws until the sensation passed. Tarvin's halls were wide, polished, clinical. There were no bloodstains here, no scorched bulkheads, no scent of antiseptic or burnt ozone. But Zavor had brought the war home with him, and it wasn't done with him yet. The lecture hall settled into a quiet tension, the kind that came when something real hovered just beneath the surface. The cadets weren't squirming in their seats anymore. They were leaning forward now, more interested than Zavor had expected. He let the pause linger for a breath before continuing. "Orion's Bow is a human Hab-Ship," he said. "Habitat-class cruiser. Fully self-sustaining, which means we could, in theory, survive indefinitely without docking or resupply. Food, water, oxygen, it's all recycled through hydroponics, atmospheric scrubbers, and filtration units." He watched their expressions shift from awe to curiosity. They didn't really understand what that meant. Not yet. So he broke it down. "It's a closed system, and it works. It's not luxurious, though. The hydroponic food is bland. We rely on rations to make meals tolerable, but if something ever cut us off from the rest of the galaxy, we wouldn't starve. That's what matters." He paused and tilted his head. "It also means that time gets strange. No ports, no breaks, just long stretches of routine, broken by violence." He took a deep breath and continued, his voice steady. "The bow is commanded by Captain Trent Riley, human, male, tall, broad, aggressive, always on the move. When I first met him, I thought I was being hunted. He walks like something's in his way, and he's going to break it." That got a few scattered laughs, but not from Yaren. She was watching him closely. Riley's what humans call a hands-on leader. He doesn't use comms if he doesn't have to. He prefers to speak face-to-face, even if that means walking across the entire ship to do it. And he remembers names, all of them. It's unsettling at first. They're like that, humans, personal, director. They'll lie when they have to, but they prefer honesty, sometimes brutal honesty. He could feel the memory of Riley's stare. Not hostile, but focused, like a heat lamp. His executive officer is Commander McBride, harder than Riley in some ways, always watching, always evaluating. He doesn't smile, doesn't relax, but he's loyal to the captain and to the crew. I wouldn't call him cruel, just sharp, like a blade you don't want to test unless you're sure you'll survive the cut. He let that sit for a second. Then he added, "Their dynamic works." Riley charges forward. McBride makes sure we don't fall apart behind him. One of the cadets near the front raised a hand. Zavor nodded. "Is it true humans live in fire?" Zavor blinked, momentarily confused, then exhaled a soft hiss of amusement. "Number, but they can survive in conditions we'd find lethal. Heat, cold, radiation. Humans are astonishingly adaptable. I've seen one function in sub-freezing conditions without even wearing a full environment suit. On Orion's bow, the standard ship temperature is close to what we'd consider dangerously cold." The cadets murmured at that, several instinctively flexing their claws or puffing up their scales. "Our Durian engineer finds the ship uncomfortably warm," Zavor added, which is ironic considering the Durian Federation nearly wiped humanity out in the early stages of the war. The fact that there's a Durian on board is a testament to how complicated humans are. Yaren glanced at him. "You mean the Federation allowed one of their own to serve aboard a human ship?" "No," Zavor said. "She's not Federation-born. Her parents were refugees, raised her in Nikan space, so she grew up around 40 insectoids, who are strange even by galactic standards. She doesn't carry the same hostility most Drians do." He leaned forward slightly. "Her name's Mira. Smart, stubborn, a good engineer. She treats every system like a puzzle that just hasn't revealed all its pieces yet. The humans respect her. That says more about them than about her, really." Yaren gave a small nod, her leftmost eye flicking thoughtfully. "Humans seem complicated." Zavor laughed once, quietly. "That's an understatement." He shifted in the mobility chair, adjusting his posture to ease the dull ache in his side. Humans form social clusters quickly. Groups. They call them cliques, usually by function. Engineers, medics, marines. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's proximity or shared jokes or just some invisible bond. And once you're in, you're in. They treat their cliques like families. He looked over the class again. If you ever serve on a human ship, remember this. Don't force your way into a clique. Wait. Be consistent. Show up. Do your job. Laugh when they laugh. Don't fake it. They'll notice. And when you're invited in, you'll know. Another student, farther back this time, called out, "What was the scariest moment aboard Orion's bow?" Zavor's expression darkened, his eyes narrowing just a touch. "There are a lot to choose from," he said. "But the one that stuck with me most, we crash-landed on a death world in the southeastern fringe. If you don't know what that means, you should. Pirates, warlords, monsters, and worse." A collective shift of discomfort rolled through the cadets. We were supposed to extract hostages from a fringe cult. Simple mission. In and out. It went bad fast. The ship came down hard. Fires, wreckage, chaos. He let the memory come back in flashes. The smoke. The monster's roar. The feeling of his back tearing open. A creature, something massive, found us. Insectoid. Bigger than a shuttle. It hunted us. Ripped through steel like it was cloth. I tried to draw it off. It caught me instead. He touched his side absently, fingers brushing over the area where his scales had regrown unevenly. Would have died if not for Carver. He found me, sprayed me down with first aid foam, pulled me into cover. Then he helped kill the thing. Another student raised a hand. "Was that what put you in the chair?" Zavor shook his head. "No, that was months ago. I recovered from that, barely. What put me here was something worse, a later mission. Different battle. I'll get to it. But it wasn't the monster that broke me. It was how often those kinds of things happen." He scanned the room again, letting them feel the weight of his next words. "On a human ship, you learn quickly there are no normal missions. Everything can go wrong, and often does. That's just life." He let that hang in the air. Then, after a beat, he nodded to the front row. "You had a question earlier about Riley?" The brown-scaled cadet nodded. "Yes, sir. Is it true humans survive things no one else can? I've heard stories." Zavor's eyes crinkled in amusement. "Be more specific," he said. But before the cadet could clarify, Zavor held up a hand. "I've seen it, over and over. I watched Riley take a hit to the leg during that monster fight. Limped the whole way back. Turned out his knee was dislocated, completely forced out of socket." Gasps. A couple cadets flinched reflexively. "Our med officer said it. Riley slept one night, got up, and walked like nothing happened. Iagis don't recover from that. Our joints don't move like that. But humans, their bodies are like rope and glue. They just snap themselves back into shape." He paused, letting them absorb that. That wasn't even the worst. Turnbull, Marine, enormous, fearless, got hit by a rotating shuttle wing during some off-duty accident. Bones snapped in two, came through the skin. It was grotesque. The class collectively winced, but they patched him up. Spray, glue, cast. A month later, he was back on duty and getting mocked by everyone. That earned a laugh, a real one. Zavor let it ride before continuing, quieter now. Thing is, they all have stories like that. Scars, dislocations, burns, injuries that should have ended them. But humans keep walking. He took a long breath. You don't understand what that means until you live with them. Until you see what it looks like when someone takes fire to the face and comes out the other side. The room had gone still again. He leaned back in the chair, voice low and measured. Pain doesn't stop them. Fear doesn't stop them. They burn, they bleed, they break, and then they get up. And somehow that was the most terrifying part of all. The class was quiet, not out of boredom, but reverence. They had gone from asking wide-eyed questions about humans to sitting silent, still, caught in the gravity of Zavor's voice and the weight of his words. He could feel their attention, not the kind that came from duty, but from genuine fascination, horror mixed with awe. The way a being watched a storm pass over, too far to feel the rain, but close enough to smell the lightning. Professor Yaren broke the silence first. That's incredible, she murmured. Her voice, normally confident, wavered with something else. Humility, perhaps. We hear all the time that humans are from a death world, but it's just a phrase. We don't understand what it means. Not really. Stories like that, they make it real. Zavor nodded once, slowly, but he didn't agree. That's not the lesson I took from it. He leaned forward in the chair, his spine still aching despite the meds. Every breath he took was measured, not painful, but present. By the time I heard about Carver's injuries, I'd been on the bow for months. Long enough to stop being surprised, long enough to start understanding. The things I've seen them do, they're not exceptions. They're patterns. Yaren tilted her head. Then what is the lesson, Zavor? He exhaled through his nose. It wasn't an easy thing to put into words, not even in his native tongue. Not something a lesson plan could cover. Everyone thinks humans are brutal because they're from a world that tried to kill them at every turn. They see the scars and the blood and the way they fight, and they think humans love violence, that they're reckless, grim, maybe even cruel. He looked at the cadets, now quiet again. But that's not it. That's not the truth. He gripped the armrest of the chair, grounding himself in something physical. The truth is, humans value life more than we do. Several students blinked. Some frowned, unsure if they'd heard him correctly. They plan for death because it's always nearby, Zavor said, softer now. They live among it. They expect it. They don't ignore the risk. They respect it. They build ships and cities with fail-safes not just to save themselves, but to save others. They train for worst-case scenarios not because they fear death, but because they refuse to waste a life. Any life. He paused. They risk themselves for strangers, not for glory, not for duty, but because they hope. They hope someone else would do the same for them. That kind of thinking, it's terrifying and beautiful. One of the students in the middle row, a girl with pale, nearly gray scales, raised her hand. But how does that line up with the war? She asked. The Dryan War, the cult engagements, the things we heard about humans during combat, that they slaughter. No mercy, no prisoners. Zavor didn't answer right away. He remembered the cult compound, the burning sky, the screams, the sound of pulse rifles, each shot a punctuation mark on someone's last breath. He remembered the way the Marines had moved through that compound like a hurricane of controlled destruction. He also remembered the way Kellen had checked for survivors, the way Carver had carried a wounded enemy out of the rubble, the way Riley had stood silent for a full minute after the shooting stopped, eyes closed, jaw clenched, as if trying to absorb the weight of what they'd done. "I had the same question," Zavor finally said. "I saw it with my own eyes, how fast they move when a threat is identified, how decisive they are when the shooting starts. It looks like cruelty from the outside. It looks like coldness." He shook his head. "But it's not. It's calculation. It's efficiency. And underneath all of it is grief. You just don't see it right away." He looked at the floor, letting his gaze lose focus. "To humans, life is a currency. Precious. Spent reluctantly. But when someone else threatens them, when someone forces the issue, humans make sure the enemy pays in full. They won't sacrifice everything to save everyone, but they'll give everything to save." The silence returned, this time not heavy but thoughtful. The lecture was over. There were no more questions, only lingering thoughts and a quiet reckoning. Zavor shifted in his chair and gave a tired sigh. "I never did get Yaren's number," he muttered to himself, too quiet for most of the students to hear. He rolled the chair toward the exit, feeling the stairs follow him. But not with pity. Not anymore. With understanding. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss, and somewhere down the hall, far from the lecture and the war stories and the wide-eyed cadets, the weight of the galaxy felt just a little lighter. He wasn't home. Not yet. But he had survived. And sometimes that was enough.